Hello everyone, this is Mesolite Visual. Today we are looking at how to import ArchiCAD model into Lumion, or focusing on fundamentals to consider before you import your model into Lumion. And also in today's exercise we will look at how best one can achieve better results or renders once the model is imported. Also looking at the steps to take once now your model has been loaded into Lumion software. So our first step will be looking at the fundamentals that you should look at before you import your model into Lumion. So you should consider the site, your site layout, how you want your site to come out before you import, like looking at things like the roads, the paving, and the walls, and all the likes. So, and also consider looking at the textures. You don't want to have mixed textures that you want to appear differently once you have loaded your model into Lumion. So there are certain things that you cannot do now once you've imported your model into Lumion. So those are the things that you need to attend to first in ArchiCAD, so that you don't need to go back and forth once you have imported your model into Lumion. So now the first thing, you have to check all the materials that you want to appear differently before when you render your model. So you go through your model and check if anything is not appearing as you want it to be before you take it to Lumion. So in this case, this is our model. We already have the road. This is our site, our ground, and our building. This is the entry point, and all that is necessary for the visualization of our structure, our building. So the next stage now is to go and import our ArchiCAD file into Lumion. So there are two ways that you can use. Either you can use the live sync, or you can simply use the manual way of saving your file as a SketchUp file or as a DA file. So you can either save your file as a SketchUp file or as the collada file. So those are the two ways that you can save. And this manual way, it is a better way to save, since it can save you, since you can also reload your model tomorrow if you decide to change some features on your model. Unlike the live sync, once you save your file tomorrow to re-import it back into Lumion, that way it will be impossible now to achieve that way. So those are the two advantages and disadvantages of using those two methods. So in this case, we are moving now to our second stage of now importing our building into Lumion. So we are going to use the live sync. So now coming to the second part of our video is now importing our ArchiCAD file into Lumion. So once you load your Lumion, this is the first page that you're going to see. So you're going to create a new project. From there, you now choose a template or an environment that suits your choice or your preference of what you want to visualize. So in this case, I will choose the tropical environment as our template for this file. So once it opens, now we can go to our live sync, and then we can sync our ArchiCAD file into our Lumion. Or if you opt to choose the other way, you can always now save your file like I said, as a SketchUp file or as a Collada file. Then you import it manually. Then we can walk through until we reach until you now place your model onto the template of Lumion template or environment that you've chosen. So here, so from here we've already live sync our object to our Lumion file. So the next stage now is to correctly place our model onto the best position. So from here, what we can do, you can simply hit the move button, then you drag your file to the position that suits your best view from the environment. Then here we can lift up our model so that we can see all the necessary. So once we've done this, now we've correctly placed our model. So the advantage of live sync is that you can also go to ArchiCAD and control through using the ArchiCAD screen, and it will also follow on the Lumion file. And so anything that you change here when you're working here, it will automatically also be adjusted here. That's the major advantage of using live sync. Its disadvantage is now, once you save this Lumion file, tomorrow if you want to now recorrect, you cannot live sync it again and reload it into ArchiCAD. You have to restart and do the work all over again. Unlike if you import naturally, once tomorrow you open your ArchiCAD and correct the model, you can always reload and it will be okay. So the advantage of the other is the disadvantage of the other between the two options. So now our next stage, we'll be looking at now selection of materials or applying the materials that we require on our model before we do anything, so that it can help us identify the type of objects or the material of objects that we want to place on our building that will be complementing with the textures of our building. So for materials, you can easily hit the material button here, and then you'll now start applying your material. Also, the other advantage of applying the materials first before placing your objects is it will help you into not making your file heavy after having placed a lot of materials onto it. So I'm just going to apply basic materials so that we can here I'm going to apply the white paint. So the purpose for applying this weathering object is so that we don't have two sharp corners on our building. so that it will appear more realistic than so through this we're trying to apply the lighting effect onto our building. So for you to achieve that, you go to settings. Under settings, you increase your emissive, and then you can achieve that effect. So you can always change the color depending on which is your preference. So for you to import an outside material, what you need to do, you go to choose a new color map. From there you go to your folder where you've saved your external material, then you can load it, and then it will be applied onto your model. So in the case of if your material is appearing like this, for you to rotate, you can use the orientation tool. Then you start adjusting the pitch or the heading of your material until it turns the way it should be facing. So once you've adjusted, now you can increase the scale of your texture so that it will suit the right position of how you want it to be placed. So if it's now exactly how you want it, now you can press it and reduce the reflection. This is just basic setting of how you want your material to appear before you render your object. So now we have completed the texture application of our building. Now we can move on to our next step, which is now the application of objects. So for that, you go to your library. From your library, now you can choose different sets of objects that you need to apply for your building to appear more realistic and onto site. So here we have imported models. If you have external models that you've imported, we have the nature, which includes the trees. So if you want to now populate your building with or your model with trees or plants, you can choose from a range of different trees, plants, grass, and etc. So I'm going to choose some plants that I'm going to place onto, some weeds that I'm going to place onto my site. Well, I think you'll need to reduce the size of these to be a bit small. So for you to reduce, you go to scale and then you apply. Because on front of the building, you don't want plants or objects that will be now competing with a view of your model. Then we come here, we add more plants. So from here we can go to our indoor to look for verses. So we go to decorations, and the decorations, now we can look for some plant vase. Now we can go back to our trees and we can place these objects into our vases. Some plants. Can increase the size a bit. So our next stage, we want to put some vehicles underneath the cupboard. So can go to the transport objects and select different types of vehicle or transport that you need for your that will be good for your visual. And there I can deactivate the driver. And there we have our building here. I want to make it a bit grayish. So moving on to our next stage, which is now setting the views of our objects. I mean our render. So we go to photo. So Lumion 11 comes with already presets of settings of render settings, so you can easily now work on them and adjust from there. So here's the basic Lumion render settings. So from there you can always now adjust now your settings, looking at your reflections, which are the major components, reflections, your shadows, and you know the sun or the weather conditions of your render. So you start adjusting those settings, reducing the sharpness of the objects. These ones you can deactivate. adjust your sky type to your preference, and then adjust now the sun path so that you get the best view of your render. So you can always change the effects of your render through here, applying some of the things that you require to get the best outcome of your render. So you can always adjust, although Lumion also comes with presets of some of the effects that you can use, but you can always adjust them and add some that you can need, so that you can get the best quality of your render. So let's just start adjusting what we have here. The shadow, you don't need 2-point perspective, of course. Let's try to use just the sun orientation. Yes. I think this is the better outcome. So you'll be just adjusting the effects until you get your best desired look of your building before you can render your object. So some of these things like this, if you don't want them to be too, you can now go back and adjust. If it's under weathering, you can remove, and put a bit of gloss onto it and reduce the reflectivity of this. So it's a back and forth type of work until you get the best result of your render. So I want to add lights inside so that we can have that lighting effect from the inside. So I'll choose this type, the general lighting, and I can lift it and then increase the brightness. Same applies to this room. Let's see the difference. So now you can work on increasing your focal points so that your building will appear more and then now you can adjust, press shift and adjust to make sure your building is straight before you can capture your model. So this is our render. Now we can render our view. So you simply click render and apply the render quality size from here. So from here I'm going to use the print size and then locate your file where you want your render to be. next notification when we upload the next video. Thank you.